Hello. um, so yeah, so I think we can do, because it's 5 of us. Yeah, we can do 5 minutes and see how we get on. We'll do 5-minute turns, and we'll just go around until Edwin calls us back into the big room. So if one, as Edwin said, you speak to whoever you want, really. You pick your listener. But it might help if whoever is starting speaks to me, and I'll reflect that back, just as the first person. Would anyone want to start and be the first one to speak about whatever you feel like?
Okay, I guess somebody has to jump in, right?
Thank you for that, Martin. Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump in. As I said, I'm from Victoria in British Columbia, and a member of the local Vancouver Island XR group. I actually, just looking at that empathy tent video that Edwin just showed with the row of listening seats, I suddenly had this kind of vision. We do a lot of things like blocking bridges and things, and I could just see setting up in the middle of a bridge, in the middle of the traffic, a row of seats right the way across the road, and then people coming up to complain or to wonder what we're doing, or to sitting down in one of those things and having this row of listeners sitting across the highway, just listening to people as they come up and talk. That looked like it could be something.
Yeah. So yes, you're in Vancouver. You're in Canada, and you were saying that just when Edwin was showing the empathy tent, immediately you had this image that actually it's something that you could apply, because you have this experience of being in bridges, and you could see those 2 rows and people sitting there and coming with their complaints, and you could be listening with them in that scenario too.
Yes, absolutely. I'm still fairly new to the online, the active protest movement again. I think the last one I went to was when the US invaded Cambodia and started bombing. So that was a fair while ago. And so it's sort of working up sort of old ways of being almost for a new world that we're moving into here.
Yeah, so you're saying it's been a while since you've been involved in direct action like this. There was the time back with the military in Cambodia and all of that, but that's and it's this new old way coming back now for you.
Yes, kind of. I'm still wrestling with it a bit. A lot of, the group itself, XR, as you probably know, if you go to meetings, it's quite disparate. Everything from anarchists to communists to more the environmental side that I are coming at it from, in terms of facing extinction and the fact that we've had 30 years to get some action together but haven't done a fucking thing. Sorry.
It's all right, you can say whatever you want, it's okay. So yeah, you're saying how you're still sort of trying to figure out, and it's not quite linear, what you feel about the group, and there's a lot of different people involved, from anarchists to a bit of everything, and you yourself come from this scientific background. I heard, don't know if I heard that well. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Environmental is what I said, but yeah, certainly that would come from a kind of a scientist viewpoint. I think my handle on Twitter is pagan scientist. So, Do I have something else to say as the first one jumping in, sort of seeing where all this is going to go? So maybe I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. So yeah, so you shared your Twitter handle with us, Pagan Scientist, and you feel like this is enough for the first round.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I feel heard.
Yeah. Tom, will you listen to me, please? Yeah. So yeah, I like this topic. You know, I've been doing these empathy circles with Edwin for a while now, and I do actions as part of XR. But it feels like there's these two, and in those actions, I do regen stuff. So I'd be doing de-escalation or, you know, caring for people's needs. But it's like these two separate worlds, and I really like it that he's bringing these two worlds together for me.
So you've got a spark for this topic, and I felt some excitement through your smile of this topic that allows you to bring together two parts of your involvement in Extinction Rebellion, both the action, regenerative culture and action side, and then this empathic listening process that allows you to bring something together.
Yeah. And there's something that I find quite powerful about empathy. I think from you know, even as a child, it's quite defiant, or it can be quite defiant. You know, I refuse to hate you. I refuse to buy into this negative system. And yes, we might not survive, but I don't need to buy into this scarcity culture. So, you know, this seems like an opportunity to explore that.
Yeah, so you're enjoying and from even from childhood this defiance of empathy as something that's almost against the system, the culture that we're a part of, and enjoying continuing to bring that element of not sure what the word is, but yeah, something that is going against the cultural narrative, I suppose.
Yeah, and I can imagine that if we were doing this on the street as well, I think one of the problems with XR, well, it's hard to pinpoint them, but one thing I noticed is this, you know, at times we have a lack of diversity, or if not of people, at least of ideas. And then there's this, you know, we could be, there's a lot of perspectives that are missing. And I think if we did listening actions, more listening actions on the streets, we'd become more sensitive to views beyond those that we already know.
Yeah, so you've noticed this lack of diversity, perhaps in people, but particularly in ideas in Extinction Rebellion, and so bringing empathic listening to the streets might open up that diversity of ideas through the listening.
Yeah. And for myself personally, like I'm very curious about people, and you're very often not allowed to ask questions, or like you're not allowed to be curious. There's only curiosity is only allowed or socially acceptable within certain boundaries of and I think we'd in a way doing empathic listening on the streets or direct action to do with empathy, or it's questioning that a bit as well. So I find that a bit exciting.
So yeah, you have this excitement in you for for enabling your curiosity to come through in the form of listening, that sort of breaks somehow the social boundaries that are often put on asking the questions that we really want to ask, and allowing listening to do that for us.
And at the same time, I realized it good supports need to be in place as well, because it's a very vulnerable place to put yourself. It's like it's beyond the already vulnerable place that you put yourself usually in direct action. So it's important to have maybe regen people that are not involved in the action that you can, resort to and back you up. Or to know yet, I haven't thought this, but there needs to be supports in place as well to hold that vulnerability.
Yeah, so you're really recognizing the potential vulnerability of putting oneself in a deep listening position within actions, and that there needs to be regenerative support around that for those offering listening as well that may be in a vulnerable position.
Thank you, Tom. And my time is up as well. Whenever people's time is up, I'll just erase this so that's a bit more discreetly than interrupting. and if people are in the middle of an idea, carry on, finish your idea, finish the reflecting. Like there's no rush to, come. It's just an indicator. Thank you, Tom. I feel heard. It's your turn.
Thank you, Marta. Robin, would you listen? I just love the idea that somebody across the world can listen by this medium. So from the UK to Australia, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So I find myself, as a local coordinator in West Yorkshire in the UK, in a really interestingly challenging week. I've just returned home to help people sweep out mud from their homes and get rid of all of their devastated carpets and furniture and food. And so I live in a village that's been in the news a lot this week because of climate change. We've had huge floods. So coming to a circle to share in this and feels really great.
So you've come from a period of like being really confronted with the actual direct right now impact of climate change in your home.
Yeah, so thankfully not in my actual home, but in my home village. So, but as a group, so I'm a coordinator for Extinction Rebellion Calderdale, and Calderdale is a valley in the hills of northern England that is very prone to flooding, and it's had now 3 huge flood events in the last 8 years that have devastated homes and businesses. And so this is a particularly local, there's a lot of particularly local issues for our group, and to try and find a way to engage in dialogue with people that are sort of, that are totally being affected. I helped somebody clear out their home this week, but I don't expect that these people really are having many thoughts about climate change. There's a lot of blame going towards local politics because of not dredging the river, for example. So for me, there's a direct action element just to outreach here, and not even pushing any Extinction Rebellion demands, agendas, or so I'm just feeling my way into what might come in this time.
So you're engaging with what is needed right now around you, but in a context where people are mostly not linking what's happening directly to climate change, but to more local government kind of issues.
Yeah, so just, the topic heading just made me think, what could we do locally as a direct action? I mean, it's outreach really, but without it being too pushy or expectant. But there are people really grieving right now because they've been very directly affected by climate change. So these pictures of chairs just sat there offering listening, although it's blooming freezing and wet still, so I'm not sure you'd do it out by the lake. but somehow offering this.
Yeah, and as you speak, I kind of am aware both of your grief and your pain for the loss that people around you have been suffering, and this sort of spark of excitement that maybe there is something here that is useful.
Yeah, so maybe to finish, because I feel I'm maybe almost up. I mentioned at the beginning, I'm also a facilitator of the work that reconnects animators work around, primarily around the sort of honouring our pain for the world and how we can take this into action. So for me, there's a really interesting connection, which is why I wanted to explore this empathy circle and process more. Yeah, and just the importance of deep listening, and really grateful for this opportunity, and Robin for you listening, and everyone else listening silently. So thank you.
And sorry, I don't know if it's your end or my end, but the sound was breaking up a tiny bit in some of what you were saying there. I couldn't catch everything you just said, but I certainly got the connection to Joanna Macy's work, and yeah, I suppose the desire to bring that work into XR and into the context of people who are directly affected by climate change in your hometown, in your home region.
Thank you, Robin. I feel very well heard across the world. Much gratitude to you.
Sophie, will you listen to me? Oh, except I can't hear you. Is your sound on, Sophie?
Should be now. Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Great. Okay. Hi.
Hi. That was it was a little bit emotional for me listening to Tom in the context that we've got in Australia right now, where thousands of people have lost homes, including a couple of my good friends. And we still have the government in denial. It's kind of unbelievable that the forces against climate action are digging in at this moment when we have just suffered the most enormous devastation particularly across the eastern seaboard of Australia.
Robin, I'm hearing that you're feeling really emotional, that it's really feels, just listening to Tom has really brought that up for you, because you've got friends and there are things that are very close to home for you. And also feeling that emotion rising up that that the government is still in denial, and that there is this devastation, and that you're really feeling that at a very heartfelt level.
I've also done just a little bit of facilitating the Joanna Macy work that we connect to work. I've just started some conversations with people here in Canberra who've got more of a psychotherapeutic background than I do around doing that work now, because my sense is that so many people have been directly traumatized that the work needs to be done in a kind of a different way, which is far more trauma sensitive than I think that work's done.
So you've also done some facilitation of the work that reconnects, the Joanna Macy work, and that you have been reaching out to some people locally in sort of a psychotherapeutic network, really trying to explore how you might be able to to do some of that work, but that it really needs to have a stronger focus around how to hold the actual trauma that people are already experiencing as a result of climate change, that it's not an abstract thing for for future generations. It's happening now. Yeah.
And I guess, before this bushfire season, I was starting to have conversations with people in XR about doing, I wasn't calling it empathy circles or anything like that, but just active listening in public space, and kind of coming off Fran Peavy's work, where she travelled around the world with 2 chairs and a sign that said "American willing to listen," and just kind of thinking like it would be great just to be setting up in public space with signage saying "climate activists willing to listen," as both as a way to be available for other people to process their emotions around what is happening, and as kind of feedback for us, but very aware that would need to be really ready to take people's rage and anger and disbelief and dismissal and denial, because there's a lot of them out there.
Okay. Yeah. So there were some bits where I couldn't quite get the sound, didn't quite come through, Robin. But I think you were saying that you've been thinking about this idea of taking active listening into a public space, and that idea of just traveling around and setting up a chair and being available to offer a space for people to actually process emotionally what's going on for them. And I didn't quite catch the rest of that, but that was the bit that I got.
That's the gist. Yeah. But yeah, I suppose the big thing in my mind at the moment is how differently do we need to do things in Australia right now, when so many people have had recent traumatic experiences and are potentially in the process of developing PTSD. What is the
I don't know if you can hear me. I've completely lost you. Can you hear me? Sorry to interrupt. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I've got you back. So I just got up to the bit where you're saying that there are so many people now who are, very likely to have PTSD. And so that was where I got up to.
Well, just saying, like, how does that change what we do and the way we work, being aware that people are, directly impacted by psychological trauma.
Yeah, and how does that change the work? Yeah, the nature of the work when you're really dealing with that much trauma. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel heard.
You're welcome. And I'm still, forgive me, because I'm still trying to work out Zoom, and I've had to change from my laptop because it wouldn't get a strong enough connection for sound. So I'm now having to work on my phone, and I'm trying to find where I go next. Are we, is it Martin, or are we back to Marta? Where do we go next?
Yeah, Martin, do you wanna?
Martin, are you there?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, great. Bear with me. I'm great. Yeah. So, yeah. For me, I guess I'm here because through some of the work that I've done, which has not been related to climate change, but has been to working with people living with cancer who are experiencing their own type of existential crisis. And I've really witnessed how powerful it can be for people to share their stories in groups, and how much, you know, sometimes as a facilitator, I've really just taken a big step back and just let those stories flow, and how much change can how much processing can happen when people are really listening to each other in circle.
Okay, so yeah, so you're not coming at this from the climate change point of view, but from the work you've been doing with cancer patients, or people with cancer or experiencing cancer trauma of some sort, and when you give them the place where somebody's going to listen to what they have to say, to what their story is, to what's going on for them, that has a very powerful impact. And you've been observing this as a powerful impact in providing that listening place. Yeah,
certainly. And that's, I guess, what excites me about this, taking this work into the XR context is, you know, when it's a bit like Marta was saying as well about that idea of it being slightly rebellious, that it subverts the competitive and distancing stuff that our culture does between human beings, that it's about opening up people's hearts and creating connection and building trust, and that can happen really quickly with people who have never met each other before. I've seen it happen. Yeah.
So in the empathy circle model, or a variation of it that you're using, the power of that model to subvert the the competitive or cultural model that we seem to have fallen into, and bring it much more into a human to human, very, very powerful interconnection that can happen quickly. With people who don't know each other, they really do connect just by speaking, telling their story, and having it reflected back to them from somebody who's really been listening to what they said.
Yeah. So I'm bringing that kind of excitement about that as a process. I guess for me, I have some fear coming up around it as well. I guess, again, a bit like what Marta was saying, that about how different it is to the way in which people normally do things, and to set yourself up in public, where, again, it can be anybody can come and they can bring anything. That it requires a level of bold that I'm still not sure where I'm at with that. But certainly, you know, I'm in a small town, and it certainly goes beyond the sort of social conventions and just so there's various different things that are coming up for me, going, oh, is that going to be something that I can do? So I'm just exploring that idea through being here now.
Okay, so the skills and the experience you had that you're now thinking of moving into the XR context, or to the kind of the different sort of angst, the existential angst of the climate change situation, and suddenly going out there and offering to listen to people who have no idea what they're going to tell you. They might tell you a story right out of left field, and you're not quite sure that you're really ready to experience what might come your way. And there's a bit of fear involved in putting yourself out there, especially in a fairly small community. So forward from there, right? Where to go next?
Yeah. Thanks, Martin. I feel heard. Thank you.
Thank you for telling me that story. It's very powerful. Thank you. Wow. So I guess how do I do something now, do I? No, I just go here. I don't know what I do next. So I pick somebody. Oh, there we go. Okay, Marta, I guess I'm back to you, because
yes, you like.
That's okay. I'm
very well.
That. Well, that was quite a powerful round, I must say. you know, jumping in at the beginning, I really wasn't kind of sure where that was going to go or where it was. But boy, oh boy, a lot of stuff came up for me in that round. I mean, obviously the stories from Australia, so powerful. You just can't even imagine what people are going through in some of those situations there. We even cry. I even cry for the, I mean, the animal story was the one that always gets people, you know, you know, 1 billion animals or whatever it was, some huge number of animals that were burned in the fire, the koalas and all the other ones. I actually have a tombstone with RIP koalas on it for putting next to a die-in. You know, if you're doing a die-in demo where everybody lies down and dies, my tombstone says RIP koalas, right? As you could have insects or birds or whatever, but there's just like all these tombstones around. I find, you know, the Australian experience is just kind of like, it's just hard to even imagine how that government, you know, Scott Morrison and it's just hard to even imagine how people's heads can still be in that space.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a very full round, more than you expected, you know, to all these different things coming up, and a lot of it very meaningful to you, and there's emotions there, and particularly, you know, when thinking about Australia and the disgrace of it all, and the pain and the animals, and how in your die-ins you have a tombstone with RIP koalas, and then, you know, it's a bit surreal. It seems like it's a bit surreal, and the not understanding how on earth, like, how the government does it. Where are they? What?
Yeah. I think that's a lot of what's going on for me right now. Is it's just a turmoil of disbelief, I mean, I spent about a year just doing the existential angst thing, and I thought I'd kind of got a handle on it. Okay, yeah, you know, I kind of got it, and then all of a sudden something happens, and it's like an onion layer gets ripped away, and it all starts again. And so it is quite a traumatic ride, which is very unusual for me. I mean, I've lived a blessed life, you know, of joy and suddenly, you know, coming to this place where it, you know, our culture has just brought us to a place of a great unraveling, you know, and can I get my head around, you know, positive visions or ways forward or ways of being within such a huge global trauma, you know.
Yeah. So it is a turmoil that's going on in you, and it's going around, and it's not, you know, you said you spent a year going through the grief of it, and in a way you thought it was easing off, and now it's all going around again, and it's just a lot of not understanding, and it's quite a big contrast as well to you know, a life of joy and enjoyment. Yeah, and it's quite not really what you thought.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I have a wife who is very, very intelligent, and yet doesn't want to know, just doesn't want to know about the darkness, you know, doesn't want to know. So I don't know, and fair enough, you know, and my kids say, Dad, just, yeah, you know, live your life, you know, do the best you can in your community, be kind, love people, and do that. And I like that. I think that's actually a very good response to what we're dealing with. And I don't know, it still feels a little bit like, do I bury my head in the sand to do that? Or how does that work? I'm not quite sure. It's still a bit of a wrestling match going on.
Yeah, it's the figuring out what to do, and different people taking different stances, and they, you know, around you, your wife deciding that it's, that, you know, it's just keep on, and your children saying, well, you do, you know, you do the good you can in the community where you are, and that resonates with you as well. But somehow there's still this struggling of how do I become real to what's going on, and without just ignoring it, and how do I keep going and make sense of it.
Yeah, I'm not there. I'm not there yet. And certainly joining XR was part of you know, engaging somewhere. I mean, I was totally impressed with you know, the birth of XR in London, and those first demonstrations, and the kind of response they got, and how it took off around the world just almost instantly. And I said, okay, there's something happening here. You know, there's something happening here. I'm gonna check it out. And yeah, I mean, people are putting their bodies on the line. You know, they're going down and saying, okay, you know, the arrestables. Okay, who's going to be an arrestable today? You know, and it's a big step for a lot of people to go to that place, and it's coming from somewhere of I don't know what else to do, you know. So what else can I do? Anyway, that's probably where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, so not, you know, this not knowing what to do that you're going through, you're definitely not alone. And coming to XR, you find that a lot, that people are trying to do the best they can, figuring out what to do and putting their bodies on the line while at it. And that's just where you are and where things in general are.
Thank you. I feel heard.
You, Martin. Robin, list. Thank you. Yeah, it's a big privilege to be together with you. That's what I feel, and that's often what I feel when, you know, in these spaces, whether in person or not, of sharing and listening, and it feels like not enough people get to have it. It's quite, and I think especially being able to share the pain where it is, you know, because it's very different seeing it in the news and feeling the pain, and it being a bit abstract. You know, you still feel it, but it's a bit abstract. It feels surreal. And though hearing you and hearing everyone, it still feels surreal. It still feels like, you know, pinch me, but at the same time, it feels more connected. It feels more grounded.
You started with a deep sigh. And then you say that the gratitude you feel for being with us now here, and to have a space to actually acknowledge what we all feel, what you feel and all of us feel, and a deeper sense of connection to what's happening in different parts of the world and how we're all being impacted.
Yeah. It also takes me, you know, I've had a very happy life. Things have been easy, and as a, you know, when I was younger, I remember going around with these placards. They say free hugs on them, and you know, and I still feel like that. But you can't always hug people, and it's not always what people need, or what they're where they're willing to go with it. And I think this in a way might be that middle gap where people might be willing to go and have those conversations, even if brief, even if with a lot of silences. But I think it's got a great impact for change, basically bringing this kind of thing to the street.
Just repeat your words, a great impact. Sorry, great impact for change. Yeah.
Yeah, on the streets, yeah.
On the street, yeah. And that this reminds you in some ways of free hug signs, but is more meeting more people where they are than people who are not necessarily wanting to hug a stranger, but who can still, this is a way to engage.
Yeah. It's and it's something about embodying the rebellion. It's still not as much embodying as I'd like, but it's a step into that space of embodying. Yeah. And it's also, one thing I worry about is doing it in a respectful way. I can, it's easy to imagine scenarios, and so I'm imagining this scenario where all of a sudden empathy is the new norm of the new acceptable, and so everyone is forced into empathy because it's the new norm. And I don't think that's where it should come from. It should come from this invitation and this, yeah.
So I picked up two main things you said there. One is about it being embodied or closer to kind of the level of embodiment that we should be working inside. And the other, this fear that it could become something which is sort of forced or people do because of an expectation rather than something that's really felt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Robin. That's very good.
Thank you. Tom, will you listen to me?
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to feel as much as I'm feeling this morning. And I'm just feeling really aware of how much I've been emotionally shut down around what's been happening around me. And yes, I just want to cry for a minute. It's just so enormous what's happened in Australia in the last 2 months. It's just impossible to take in the scale of how much has been destroyed. And so many places that have nurtured me, that have been places I've gone to feel connected with nature, to recharge in some way, are just gone.
Yeah, I really hear that you've been a little taken by surprise by the wave of emotion that's coming up for you this morning. That perhaps wasn't expected when you stepped into this space with us, and yeah, just feeling the need to express that through crying, and that emotion is coming through a slow landing of the realization of what's been lost around you in these last months, and perhaps places that have meant a lot to you and have nurtured you and others around you.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I've been doing a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of supporting other people who've been more directly affected. And I guess the big emotion for so many of us, I think, has been the sense of powerlessness, both in terms of like being able to immediately help people in our region, that the sense that, well, there's nothing actually, I don't have any resources that are useful. I don't have skills which are of immediate use. And you know, there's nothing I can do directly to help people around me, and that what we've been doing politically still isn't cutting through to people in power. Or I mean, I do think things would be worse politically if XR didn't exist and if other climate activists weren't doing what we're doing. I think it would be even worse. But the impact we're having just feels so tiny.
So you've been supporting people that have perhaps had a more direct impact of the devastation around you as best you can, but are feeling this sense of disempowerment at the scale of what you're able to offer, the skills, and in the face of the enormity of it, both physically and politically.
And yeah, I mean, just thank you, all of you, for being here and listening. And thank you, I feel heard.
Thank you for sharing, Robin. Yeah, I just really value a little silence for a moment, I think, just to let things land. And Sophie, I don't know if you're still there. I can't see you. You're on mute. Are you there? No. So Martin, perhaps would you listen? Would that be okay?
Okay.
Yes, of course.
Oh,
Yes. Martin.
Okay. I just wondered whether Sophie's back, but I guess she's just having technical problems. Okay. So you said Marta or Martin?
I said Martin. Sorry. Yes, I didn't enunciate. Yeah, I'm feeling a huge amount of gratitude for landed into this circle. Yeah, so much resonating, and then something that's really coming up is this this opportunity to connect across borders, these strange political concepts.
Mm-hmm. So you're feeling the gratitude for being here, and just a little bit overawed perhaps by the whole idea that here we are in Australia and the UK and Canada and other places around the world, just kind of able to have these kind of intense conversations with each other.
Mm. Yeah, I just do think that there's something, there's ongoing critique, and I'm sure in all the places that you're in, about the diversity of Extinction Rebellion, and diversity in many senses, and that somehow it can be a little exclusive for various reasons. But I think for me, I feel diversity in so many ways, and this particularly, this is one for me, just to be able to hear people's stories from other parts of this beautiful earth that we share. Really touches so much deeper than reading the many, many things that we're all bombarded with.
So actually hearing real people, as it were, from around the world tell real stories seems to be, it brings things home in a much deeper way than perhaps reading about it in the news or somewhere else.
Oh, welcome back, Sophie.
Thanks. Hi, sorry, I disappeared for a bit.
No. And something, Sophie, I was just saying how powerful it feels to be able to share around the world, and how that is in itself a form of inclusivity and diversity within Extinction Rebellion, that we're able to be in spaces like this. And so to bring it back to the local, and I mean, Robin, it's been so grateful to hear your story and your feelings from where you are, and just have that perspective on things that are going on, just locally here at the moment, which is not on that scale, but still meeting people very directly. And just wondering, what empathic listening and sharing and dialogue, what part it can play in it, in a real healing process in community. And community can be so many things.
So, so having this group around the world, and sort of contrasting that with the local situation that you're in, where you're dealing with people in reality, face up in real situations, and wondering what that's what we're doing here, is we're kind of looking at what role the empathy circle model, the empathic listening, might play in your immediate theatre where you are now.
Yeah, and it sort of slightly amuses me, the thought of bringing this process to my local XR group, because Martin, I think you said like the variety of people, and some people like, check-ins, God, none of this. We just used to go down the pub, like this sort of hardened activist, and so this sort of soft stuff, this emotional stuff, it sort of makes me chuckle to think. But people also, when it's done in a subtler way, can really hugely benefit from it, because it's just that's part of our social construct as well for me, getting beyond that uncomfortable edge of really deeply connecting with one another.
Mm-hmm. So going down to the pub as a model of empathic listening is more what you sort of have in your vision of the group, the local XR group background, and I'm actually, I have you, Sophie, dancing around on my screen in front of me.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I've had to dial in on my mobile, and now I'm trying to get my mobile to stand up so I don't have to hold it because my arm aches. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, there's definitely the idea of bringing something like the empathy circle, the soft skills model, if you like, into a diverse group of people who perhaps, including protesters who've been protesting all their lives, and they're sort of fairly hard-nosed about the whole thing. And so how do you bring this in and get them to make the leap into it, knowing, as you do and we do, that it is a very powerful model.
And then taking that step with that group to be able to offer it to the wider community, because this has to be about widening our connection, beyond those that identify as climate activists. So this is just so valuable to be stirring a big pot together. So thank you.
Yeah, how do you bring it? Sorry, Sophie, you're back again. Just throwing me off a little bit.
Sorry, I'm still new to Zoom, so I'm still working out how I engage with the technology.
For some reason, it keeps on switching over to you, and so I'm listening to Tom's voice, and I'm getting your picture. For some, I don't know. Maybe I've got something wrong on my thing here, but anyway, Tom, just sort of finishing off with how useful we can make this process, and then the idea of taking it to the wider audience. I mean, we're all in this together, so how do you then expand it out just from the immediate XR people to the community at large? And because you need to pull in the policemen, and you need to pull in everybody into the larger group.
Yeah, thank you, Martin, for holding with. I feel heard.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I appreciate that.
Martin, just a quick note. There might be a button there on the top right that tells you gallery view.
Yeah, I'm on gallery. I can go to gallery, and now then speaker view. So I was on speaker view,
but if you're on gallery, you can see everyone.
Yes, and I can see everybody across the top, and then the person who's speaking. And I think it was just Sophie's phone was thinking that it should be in the speaker's position. Okay, well, Sophie, why don't I talk to you?
That would be great, Martin. Yeah, I'll try and stay still.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess that's why, in some ways we're here, because we're looking at this, the empathy circle model, and trying to sync it up with Extinction Rebellion a bit, in as much as we know that the empathy circle model is a very powerful model and powerful tool. And we know that XR is, right on the pulse of the times, and is addressing, okay, what needs to be done. Nothing, all the other protests don't seem to have done very much. And so all of a sudden XR comes along and says, okay, well, nothing else seems to work. This is it. We're shutting things down until somebody takes notice around here. So how do we bring that empathy, as Tom says, a sort of softer skill, into what ostensibly is a protest mode, which is probably traditionally seen as fairly hardcore. The adherence to total nonviolent principles moves it away from the sort of more violent protests and the more violent rebellions that do happen in some situations. And so now so that brings it more in line with empathy circles, and we know that, as Martin Luther King said, nonviolence is our most powerful weapon. So is this one of those weapons? is the empathy circle one of those weapons?
Sure. Yeah. So it's really for you. It's about syncing up between the empathy circles as a really powerful tool, potentially powerful, weapon in the activism process, in the non-violent activism process, and that how do you sync all of that up with XR and the size and the scale of the movement, which has, it's a lot of people involved who are, hardcore activists and haven't necessarily engaged in some of this softer stuff, but that there is that kind of open door with the non-violent principle within XR for that. And how can you bring this in as a non-violent weapon? Right,
yeah. I mean, if I go back to that line of seats that Edwin showed us, I could see, okay, you have your XR listeners, your empathy circle listeners, and then maybe on the other side you have a row of policemen. You're talking to them. Oh, tell me about yourself. Why are you here? Well, I'm here to arrest you, buddy. Oh, okay. So I don't know how that dialogue might go, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, as none of us, well, some of us, somebody may have some ideas, but I guess that's why we're here, is to throw out some ideas. I'm still unsure. I sort of introduced it a little bit to the local XR. I said, but it hasn't had any take up. Nobody has said, oh, tell me more about that. So at the moment it's just kind of floating in the background.
Sure. So at the moment you're here to kind of explore ideas and to really throw some things around, have a sort of explore really of what that might be like, what those situations might be like. So it could be something like 4 active listeners and 4 policemen, or it could be something else. And so it's trying to get to a stage where you can really start to picture what that would look like. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and you've sort of put a few feelers out into your local group and haven't yet got the sense that there's anyone else who's wanting to explore that with you yet, I think.
Yeah. No, that's pretty good. I mean, I feel pretty heard. I don't have a lot more to say about it. That's just sort of, so this piece was just the practical thing. Why we're here. We started one meeting with a round, and then one of the people said, I just want to remind everything that this is not a therapy group. So fair enough. So it's not a therapy group. We're here for other reasons. But on the other hand, maybe it is dealing with people's PTSD and existential angst and things like that. Is that part of what Extinction Rebellion needs to be doing or not? We just say, okay, you go away, deal with that by yourself. And when you come to the protest, you come into the protest, So, I don't know.
So there's a question which is around, is this part of XR's work, to actually help people to process, to deal with PTSD or whatever emotionally is coming up for them? Is this part of XR's work? And but at the same time, there's that idea of this is not a therapy space. So there's these different ideas that are sort of quite present for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much. I feel totally heard. Thank you.
Okay. That's fine. So I just want to say to the whole group that I'm actually feeling quite embarrassed just at how ditzy I'm probably coming across, and it's not how I would normally want to operate. I'm not very familiar with Zoom. I haven't got a gallery view. I don't know how to get a gallery view, so I can only see the person who's speaking and me, which has worked okay so far, but then I've just discovered that I'm meant to have a gallery view. So Marta, I don't know if you can help me out, but the top right hand corner, I've got just a record button, which I've been too scared to press.
You're doing great, Sophie.
Yeah. So you feel like you're being clumsy about it because you're new to Zoom. You're probably clumsy and you don't know where this button is, but you're on your mobile phone.
Yeah. So I was thinking that I could press some buttons without anything happening, but it seems that I've been pressing things in the background, and that's putting me up in front of Martin and interrupting conversations, and I'm just like, oh, no. So I've sort of stopped pressing buttons and just gone, I'll just go with where I'm at. But do I need to have the gallery view, or shall I just go with how things are?
You can go with whatever. If it's working for you the way it is, that's fine.
Okay, I'll do that then. Right. Marta, shall I talk to you since I already am talking to you? So
Sure, go ahead.
So yeah, so I mean, I'm finding, the conversation is, I mean, it's really sparking ideas for me, and it's and this idea of powerlessness that has come up. I see how powerful it can be, that change for people to feel in a place where they can accept what's going on for them, rather than, you know, the kind of the fight that comes from not being comfortable with our emotions. And that that it seems to me that there's sort of two threads that run through XR, which is what attracted me to XR as being a very different activist campaigning organization, which is this idea that the inner work is just as important as the outer work, and that actually, whilst we're working to create a world that will be, you know, as good as it can be for as many different species and beings as it can be, that actually, you know, we don't have any certainty that, you know, we can bring that about, and that it is as much about being able to come to a place of acceptance with what is, as it is about trying to affect the future for future generations.
Yeah, so this conversation brought up a lot for you. If you know, ideas and things, and one very clear one is this lack of control of the situation that can be difficult for people, and it just, you know, there's coming to terms with it and accepting it, that is going to bring increased ease, and is quite important. And then you're saying that one, you know, two things that would appeal to you about XR is this principle of the inner work is the work, and it's not actually separate. And I feel I've missed something.
I guess, it was, I didn't link it very well, but I was kind of meaning that idea of the powerlessness to effect change in the outer world could be countered by actually where people are able to affect change, where they can be powerful, where it can be a very powerful thing to do to help somebody to, you know, to be able to accept emotions that they feel they can't contain, or that they feel they can't accept, or that they have to suppress, or that, you know, that to be able to actually to help them to hold the emotions that are coming up for themselves, and to be able to move those, is actually really powerful.
So one way that it can be helped, this powerlessness, is actually taking the power back, accepting, you know, feeling the feelings that come with it, and move into acceptance. And that's
and the other thing that is just, I've been kind of going back over and rereading Jared Diamond, and thinking about, you know, some of the books he's written that were written, you know, like 25 years ago now, where he's talking about how we're the first generation who have ever had to imagine, have ever kind of imagined that the future for our children might not be there, and that in terms of the whole of human evolution, that actually that it is an enormous psychological, emotional evolution that we are needing to make, because as far as we're aware, no other species has ever had to do this before, and we really are those first generations that are coming through and doing that work. And so I'm trying to link this in because I also want to be practical. I hear the group's desire to be practical and to talk about how we might design and implement empathy circles. But I think it's, I think it is about being able to see that work is integral to what XR is doing, rather than a bolt-on. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So you're thinking back. There's this book that you've gotten to reread now, and yeah, Jared Diamond. That is a relatively old book, but it seems relevant now that in human history we're this first generation of people that actually have to think about things getting worse rather than getting better into the future, and that's quite a new thing to come to terms with and go through, and it's quite important in XR. And you said about not, but are really doing not bolt on.
Yeah, that it's not kind of a sort of an added extra. It's integral to creating the cultural shift that we're going to need, shifting that mindset that you know, we're kind of going, how can people not engage with it? And it's because it's such a huge shift that we're asking people to make, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's not just, oh, here's the science and here's the facts, you know. Why it's actually asking people to do that kind of spiritual evolution work, which might, you know, they might never ever considered that sort of work before. And I'm just imagining sitting down and having people who are just general public coming and talking, and you know, that their inner world might not yet have the capacity to hold that reality.
Yeah. So collectively we're being pushed into this massive evolutionary step, and it's really important that that's central, that the awareness in that work is central rather than being an add-on.
Yeah.
And if we, you know, if this is done, if it's done on the streets, if it's done just with the wider public, that not everyone is necessarily there yet with their inner world.
Yeah. And to enable people to have the capacity to be able to take on board that reality, to be able to accept it and to acknowledge it and hold it within themselves, it's going to require a level of people engaging with their emotional selves that maybe lots of people aren't able to do yet.
Yeah, and to actually bring that up in people and encourage it as a culture, and that it takes a level of dedication to it that might not be there yet.
Yeah. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you, Sophie. Robin, will you listen to me, please?
Yes. Unmuted.
Thank you. What a journey. There's this one particular thing that is coming to mind of, and it's unrelated, but it's not. It's being at an action where, you know, it's during Rebellion Week, and so there's many actions and many things to be involved in and do. And so at some point, so we had this thing here in Ireland that we called empathy first responders. So we just had these white sashes that just said empathy on them, and we just hover around basically at actions or on the main site to keep feelers out for people needing an ear or wanting to chill with company, or if there was some conflict going on, or just, you know, hovering around, having a feel. Yeah.
So this conversation is reminding you of of that work which feels related but not quite the same as what we're talking about here?
Yeah. And one of the times I was doing that, I just went along with an action. I didn't even, know much about the action. But all of a sudden I had some leaflets, and it was to do with native trees instead of monoculture. And so I gave out a leaflet on the way. And I think I probably was very tired, so I probably wasn't as present as normal. So I just, someone gave me some leaflets. I had some leaflets. I gave a leaflet. Nothing wrong with the leaflet, but I then had a gentleman that came, that I had given it to, that was very angry. And I got quite a bit of slack, just a lot of screaming. And basically, he was someone who was very knowledgeable on the topic of the leaflet. And so he was trying to have an argument with me on facts to prove it wrong, or some form of, and probably because I was tired, I started engaging in the conversation from that point of, not with the facts, but like trying to explain what the action was about, instead of just listening and doing the. What was interesting about that is, I was tired. I broke down into tears while, getting like, and ended up going on this very clear emotional rant of like, you seem to know what you're talking about. Just come and help us. We're right there. Come and help us. Like, if you know about that and we don't, just get your ass down there. And it was nice, because my totally out of the blue emotional outburst, in a kind way, I wasn't, broke through his tough skin. It just got right through to the person behind that rah, rah, rah.
So you were, in a sense, surprised that your unplanned emotional response actually cut through and actually touched this person and shifted something. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wonder if that's what we need to do with the politicians. Cry in front of them or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Okay, and so for the other facilitators, you can turn off your video if you're remembering.